Philip Ballman. I have been working in Eagle County since 1991. I started working at Anderson Camp out by Dotsero a long time ago, and then spent many summers as a commercial raft guide while I was a teacher. So I guided with Timberline Tours and the Hood River Guides. And then that matched beautifully with the teaching profession. And I got my first teaching job at Battle Mountain High School 15 years ago. So in my time with the school district, I've worked as a social studies teacher. I worked as a mentor teacher, and then worked as assistant principal at Battle Mountain when it was still in Eagle Vail. And then when the school first moved here to Edwards, I was the first principal at this new campus and helped to move the school over. And I got to serve as principal here for six amazing years. Had a great time here. Rebecca may recall those years.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And for the last 3.5 years, I've worked as assistant superintendent.
Not to take up too much time, I'd like to have the honor here to this afternoon to introduce Karen Quambeck, who comes up from Jeffco, and highly recommended by Dr. Glass. Here's our 3 questions. We'll start with them again. Introduce yourself and tell us why you're interested in leading Eagle County Schools.
Okay, what a fun question, right? So I'm Karen Quambeck. I'm currently in Jeffco, and I think we'll talk about that in the second question. I'm going to go right to the why. I have 3+ reasons. The first one is around vision. I love the vision that Eagle County Schools embraces around authentic, engaging, exceptional experiences for kids in classrooms. It's all about what's happening in the classroom. Everything in our strategic plan, all of the tactics really wrap around and result in amazing instruction for kids.
I think that might be awkward. So she's a mental health therapist, and we have 3 kids, and they are mini adults, I would say, because they're not kind of out of the nest, but they're in college, so they can always hop back in. We have one daughter who'll be teaching in Tokyo, perhaps in about a year. Another daughter who's in Bellingham in college, and a son who'll be at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo in September. So totally empty nesters. That's from a personal standpoint. From a professional standpoint, why Eagle County Schools? Interestingly enough, 7 years ago, we talked to, my wife and I sat down with our 3 kids and said, okay, do you guys want to go on a great adventure? Because we think life is all about choices. And you get to choose where you live and where you work and where you play, right? And we said, we are going to move to a really great ski area somewhere and with lots of outdoor opportunities. And it's either going to be as a finalist in Glenwood Springs, and I'm not sure where I'm at right now, but there we go. Glenwood Springs, I was the runner-up, and the gentleman, Rob, is still there. Sandpoint, Idaho, and Bozeman, Montana. So we were thrilled, all awesome places. The kids weren't as thrilled, but we did it anyways, and it was good for them. So I experienced for the last 7 years what it's like to really live in a kind of a ski mountain resort community. We also have a giant lake, and we absolutely love it. And there's a different rhythm in communities like this, and it's just a fact, as you all know. So I got a call about a year ago from a consultant who said, hey, guess what? Do you want to apply for this job? It's near Glenwood Springs, where you're interested in going. And talked to my son, who's going to be a senior, and he's like, Dad, no way. And I understood. We said, okay. And about a month ago, I got another call, and he said, guess what? Job's open again. I was like, oh no. Felt bad, but then felt good. So I was like, right on. Okay, I talked to my wife, and she said, yes, apply for it. So you can understand the personal reasons. You get that. Eagle County Schools is also in the wheelhouse of what I'm comfortable with leading as a superintendent. I've only worked in school districts between 4,000 and 10,000 students, and this being about 7,000. And I would not have applied had I not believed that the leadership profile that was posted online, that kind of outlined, you could kind of read between the lines some of the opportunities and challenges here, as well as the vision and the strategic plan for the school district. I wanted to feel comfortable that I could come in right away and make a difference as a superintendent. Otherwise, I wouldn't have applied. So from a professional standpoint, very much in line with what I'm confident in and what I know I can do. And then from a personal standpoint, great. So just kind of married, and here I am. So thank you.
All right, next question. Briefly review your experience with emphasis on how it has prepared you to be the next superintendent.
Okay, so real quickly, I kind of feel like I've been interviewing for this job for 27 years, right? So it feels like this is a logical kind of next step. for me. And what I would envision as, if I'm the right fit, is a long-term step, because we know what we want to do, my wife and I. I know the size district and the kind of place that we want to live and stay. I was a teacher for 7 years, and I taught 2nd grade, 4th grade, 6th grade, and 2 years at junior high school level. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so much fun to really think about the impact that our teaching, not a group of teacher buddies, is having on all of the kids in this classroom. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? What if we all became principals and we could work with groups of teachers on school improvement and not just grade level improvement? So I took a 2-year principal certification program and got a job in Burlington, Washington, north of Seattle by about an hour, with very similar demographics to here. The school that I was in, we had between 30 and 60% roughly of our students were Latino at any given time. We were a migrant farming community, so it depended on the season for sure. So I did that for 9 years in a K-8 school. Then, same idea. I want to become a superintendent. It'd be really interesting to see the impact you could have working with principals and teacher leaders to really move a school district to high levels of learning for all kids. Went through my 2-year superintendent certification program. I became an assistant superintendent in Paulsville, Washington for 4 years. An equally diverse community where we served 2 Native American tribes. So we had 2 sovereign nations within our school district, which was awesome and interesting and a good learning experience for me. And then finally I thought, okay, I get the teaching and learning side of the house. I was assistant superintendent of teaching and learning. Did that for 20 years, kind of more just teaching and learning. And then thought I'm going to become a superintendent in a district the size of Sandpoint, 12 schools, 4,000 students. And I really worked hard the last 7 years to have a keen understanding of also finance, HR, transportation, food services, et cetera, you name it. And I thought I need to become really good in all of these areas as well. And we really have focused on why do you exist as a department? And they know we exist because we have kids that attend our school district. So how do we support kids and families in every one of those departments as well? So along the way, I think all of those experiences have prepared me well to be the next superintendent here. I don't think there's anything that I would experience here, really, that's radically different than the experiences that I've had thus far in my career. It's a little bit more like Sandpoint on steroids, so I have to admit. I live in a smaller mountain town, if you will. This is with wildly diverse socioeconomics. It may be even wilder here, but I understand the challenges and opportunities that brings.
Perfect. Describe your leadership style and provide an example of helping highly skilled professionals navigate change.
You bet. So my go-to style is collaborative leadership. A lot of people will say that. It's different to live it. I will tell all of you that by myself, I'm of average intelligence, and I'm okay with that. And school districts have very complex problems, and I learned early on in my career I'm a lot smarter if I involve others and we work together. So imagine how wickedly smart we are if we all gathered around the table around the complex issue that this school district has. We have a lot better chance of solving it at a really high degree of likelihood of success if we rely on our diverse experiences and our diversity of thought. So that's collaborative leadership is my go-to. However, I also employ situational leadership because sometimes you have to act and you have to act fast. So sometimes you have to be authoritative. If it's a safety issue, for example, you cannot get a committee together to decide all the time on how you're going to solve a particular problem. The other part that I'd like to share is, because this is important with the change process, is I would also be described as a very high support superintendent, but I'd also be described as a high accountability superintendent. And I've been described, I like this because it sounds nicer than accountability, I'm a warm demander, and I can do that. And if you have certain kinds of skills with people, you can do it. But people in my district today would tell you that they're okay. They want to be held accountable, and they want to get better and better and better. And the reason is because we've collaboratively developed this compelling vision for the future for our school district and a better place for kids. It's a call to action that they were engaged in, and they want to be held accountable. They want to get there, and they want to be supported. So that's how that kind of style really helps that district's move, if you will. So.
And now this is your chance to ask Sean questions. So please feel free to ask anything you like.
Not anything, right?
Well,
No, I'm kidding.
anything
I'm good
at
with
all.
anything.
Anything that comes to your mind, at all.
Yeah, hi. First of all, apologize for being late, and you may have already covered the two questions that I have. The first is, what was your personal reason for coming here, coming to Eagle, other than because there was an opening here for a superintendent's job? What is your draw? What is your interest in Eagle County? And then the second question is, as a superintendent, you have a big responsibility to address, meet, try and solve problems from different viewpoints, students, parents, this and that. My concern is the cost of the PERA system here in the state of Colorado, which is Public Employees Retirement Association account. And actually some changes were made last year, and I think they probably are going to be needing some changes in the future. How do you think you would be able to navigate making sure that you keep your quality teachers, along with maybe some reality checks on how much needs to be funded and where change might go on this?
Okay, so I think I understand the second part. First part I did answer, but real briefly, this fits my family from a personal standpoint, coming from a town like Standpoint, Idaho, and all the amenities that a mountain community has. This is who we are.
Okay.
So you're really asking kind of a finance question and staffing question around efficiencies and hiring what you need.
Well, the retirement issue is something that has been somewhat contentious in the sense that, there's teachers that paid into the system for X number of years with that certain expectation of benefits and how much and when and so forth, and then there have to be some changes because there's a significant amount of unfunded liability if you do the accounting the way that they say you're supposed to represent everything. So I'm wondering how, as a superintendent, you can address this financial thing, and if it requires, say, the teachers to say, okay, we'll compromise on this to give you that, and so forth, because it all does tie into taxpayer and choices of where the money goes.
Yeah, I'll just say, generally speaking, when it comes to collective bargaining and negotiations, in my experience, I'm a very non-positional person. I've done positional bargaining, if you will, in the past, and been on teams that does not end very well. So we utilize a process called interest-based bargaining, and there is a lot of give and take in that. Basically, in a nutshell, we're all operating from the standpoint of we all have common interests, and we have limited money. We have a limited pot here. So let's talk about how we get to solving some of our problems that are in line with our common interests at the table together. That sometimes might mean you get a little less here, but you get a little more here. And to me, it's all about negotiating in an interest-based manner. And honestly, it's a complex issue that you're talking about. There's state funding issues involved. I'm very active at the state level currently, as every superintendent should be. Before I left for Colorado, I was on the phone with our state senator, and he was running back onto the floor to voice my opinion as a superintendent, which I'm voicing the opinions of others in our district. So you got to work at the state level, and then you got to work locally in a good faith with your people as well. So I've experienced it both.
Thank you.
All right, we need other questions. We have 3 minutes.
So I'll jump in. Kind of a narrow focus. Within your experience, how have you supported dual language education and bilingual education, especially coming from a First Nations school district, and then even in Washington State working with migrant families?
Yeah, so everywhere that I have worked outside of the district that I'm in now, and we're working towards that, we have employed 50-50 or dual language programs, and so I have experience in both. As assistant superintendent, well, actually, the interesting thing is we were teaching Lashutsi for credit, and it's the Squamish native language, but specifically for Spanish, I was brought in as assistant sup, and my task at that time was to help the school and the principal make improvements on that program so kids were actually becoming bilingual by the time they left the 6th grade, because it was in place for a long time. So I've experienced going in, being able to work in those kinds of programs and make adjustments for better results for the students as well.
What about, we do have an achievement gap, and so what are your ideas on working on that?
Yeah, so literally feel like I've worked my whole life on that issue. And we've made beautiful gains where I'm at right now. A couple of things. Number one, there are, I think, 40-ish tactics in the strategic plan. Many of them are related to doing things to close that achievement gap. Some are probably experiencing more success than others. I'd audit that. Hey, what's really working, what's not? But things that generally do work for that are knowing and living the fact that the single biggest determinant of a child's success in school in any given year, and this trumps poverty or language issues, is the expertise of that classroom teacher. Parents know that, and educators know that. You know the old secret. It's like, oh man, I'm not sure you want that teacher, that teacher. It's real in every district in the U.S., right? So for me, I have a mission as a superintendent. We can't afford to have any of those classrooms. We need high levels of expertise in every single one of our classrooms. So I want to make sure as a new person, what's happening in this school district, and there's a lot I know to be very proud of, that is ensuring that we have good teachers between the bells and high levels of teaching and learning 100% of the time, because that's what all kids deserve, and we need to demand it. So that's the quickest route to closing the achievement gaps. The other thing that I would like to do, and be of interest to me, and I think the board is interested as well, is we'd be doing some kind of an equity or cultural audit. And they're not hard to do, but they kind of hurt people's feelings at times because we have implicit bias in our practices. We all do. And one of the quickest routes to closing that achievement gap is to recognize any bias that we have in the school system to promote a more inclusive, bias-free environment. That works. I know I've seen it work. It's a beautiful thing. So I'd like to kind of learn more about what's happening in Eagle County schools in that area as well. But those are just a couple of things. So that was gone. That was gone.
Sounds like we're going.
Missy.
All right.
Thank you so much.